my pleasure and privilege to welcome all of you to this unique gathering, which brings together persons who have been affected by climate mobility and have relocated, and persons who are still being affected in this lovely community of Ancillary, my adopted village. I would like to acknowledge Mrs. Annette Fleischer from GIZ, Mr. Crispin Dovey, Program Coordinator, OECS Commission, Mr. Stephen Griffith, the Chairperson of the Ancillary Disaster Committee. I would first like to welcome Mr. Ludovic Bascom to lead us in prayer.
Our Father and our God, Lord, we are thankful for your love and for your kindness towards us. We are thankful, O Lord, thy God, for who you are. We ask of your divine presence to be with us even here now, that you may take full control of the proceedings here as we discuss, as the information is given. May it be received, O Lord, thy God, and for the betterment of our house, our children, and even we ourselves in our way forward. Lord, continue to be with us. Take charge, and let you be glorified, is my humble asking. In Jesus' wonderful name we pray.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bascom. First, I would like you to draw to your attention a video which will be played on it's Ancillary. It's just an introduction video for this activity.
The residents will tell you, Ancillary is the most beautiful village on the West Coast. It is surrounded by lush green mountains and the Caribbean Sea. But the residents know too well, the location is both a blessing and a curse. What makes Ancillary such an attraction also results in major destruction, and it has happened time and time again.
My name is Reeves Lawrence. I am a councillor on the Ancillary Constituency Council. I can remember as far as Hurricane Janet and Hurricane Edith. That was when I was a youngster. I remember this village being flooded. And for years after, that flooding has continued.
Ancillary is flanked by lush green hills, the source of the biggest threat to the community, water. It is channeled by two major rivers, one to the north in the St. Lawrence area, and the other, known as Grand Riviere, lies at the foot of the hills to the south. And then there is the sea to the west. Combined, these water sources make for a deadly combination.
Flooding will always be our problem, although some of it has been mitigated over time with the government program where they did some work a few years ago, but the flooding will continue. And this just happens because of our geographic location. We have the hills on the north, to the south, to the east, and when all this water comes into the village, the community, you can imagine what can happen.
Storms, sea surges, overflowing rivers and waterways have inundated this beautiful village, resulting in property damage, discomfort, dislocation, and distrust from unfulfilled promises of help.
What has happened over the years is that people have lost a lot of their properties.
Thankfully, there's been no loss of life from flooding, but lives have been impacted and disrupted, with most continuing to live in poverty, unsanitary and unsafe conditions. Cyprian Martin owns a business on Bridge Street. He lives upstairs and so has been spared major damage to his personal effects. but the bar he runs downstairs has been inundated every time there is a major flood. Floodwaters have come through the window and destroyed his stock, refrigerator, and everything below the counter. Relocation is not an option. Cyprian has built his life here, and in any case, he can't afford to move.
I have no space to live. I have no place there. I born there, I have no place to live. And I cannot say, I will buy your piece out, and I don't have no cash for that.
The Whisker Seraphim was 13 when Tropical Storm Debbie washed away his home at St. Lawrence. It was a traumatic experience.
It was just like a lick. It was just like a lick, I could say. Because I even that time there, I was even afraid in that time there because I was a little boy and first time I ever saw that. And then we was in a house, we was there, my father was trying to take off different things to put up on different things suddenly, you know. And a certain time we just feel like the house just drift through the back. Like left the balcony itself, it left the balcony and it drift to the back. So we had to take off my mother, drove her next side because they had some guys who was giving us rope because the current was so strong. The current was so strong, we had to end up giving us rope to make us swing from the other side. That is where we all passed there with the vehicle. We end up crossing from the next side. End up there in that time there, we stayed there for a while. We crossed our mother, my father and I. We brought my mother from the next side. We came back to grab some little clothes and different stuff. We had a lot of work to do. The road was muddy. We had to carry water from over there, start cleaning our houses. Everything was destroyed inside the bar. Everything. We had clothes, all our clothes, everything. Everything was destroyed. Trust me, everything was destroyed. They said they would have given us a help, like the government people would have given us some help, but they said that, but we never get no help.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of all the agencies involved, the OECS Commission, GIC Answering Committee, I'd like to welcome all of you here this afternoon. And just to say that, well, first of all, on a personal basis, I have a very long personal connection with Ansari in many different ways. Mr. Lawrence is nodding, he knows a few of these connections. So it's always a pleasure to work in Ansari or to collaborate and meet people in Ansari. Well, you saw the video for yourself. That is not a video from elsewhere. That is a video recording things that have happened in Ansari. That is your experience. Okay? It's not anyone else's experience. And what we see here is the effect that weather-related events can have on people. And when we realize that the science is telling us that the weather is being affected by long-term climate change, that weather patterns are changing, that storms and floods are becoming more intense, droughts are becoming more intense, it means that we face a future where events like what we just saw on the screen are more likely to happen, and they will be more severe than they were in the past. So when you realize the geographical location of Ansari, you recognize that it is, as the video said, that it's enclosed almost, and you have the sea to the west. People's lives will be impacted by the storms, the floods, and it's going to affect whether people go or whether people stay, or if they go permanently, or if they move for a short time as a result of those events. And so we are very happy that we've been collaborating over the last year or so with the GIZ, and we've been working on an initiative that deals with human mobility in the context of climate change. In other words, the movement of people as it's influenced by climate. And this afternoon, we hope that we will have a really interesting conversation, a really interesting discussion, that we can get some background information, but we can also share some insights and capture some of your thoughts as well, because you're the persons who live this, who experience this. You're one of the communities most severely affected by weather events of that type. And so once again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'd just like to thank all of you for making the time and the effort to be here. I noticed some of my colleagues from the OECS Commission who were here this afternoon, and it's always a welcome. And I know on a weekend, sometimes people, especially after Carnival, some people are still recovering. I know it's a really hot day, and it takes some effort to come over here. So once again, thank you. And before we even get into the meter discussion, I'd like you to give yourselves a round of applause. And at this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Stephen Griffith, President of the Ancillary Disaster Committee, to give us some brief remarks. Mr. Griffith?
Thank you very much. First of all, welcome everyone to this symposium. Having watched the video, it says everything that you have experienced and what you may experience in the future. I've been in the heart of all these activities. I've faced all the problems. I've been in the middle of all of it. So I know what we have experienced. I must say a big thank you to the OECS for adopting ancillary in many ways. We have worked with the OECS on 3 main projects in ancillary to help us to mitigate against disasters. As one person pointed out in the video, he cannot move. And we cannot move the village. We are here, and we have to do our best to try to lessen the impact of climate change on the lives of our people. Thanks to a number of people who volunteered the services on the disaster committee, we have been able to achieve quite a bit in the fight against all the damages that have been caused by floodwaters. Two of the main areas that we have worked with the OECS on are the gabion basket by the infant school, because the water was eroding the soil at the back of the school, and the school was on the fret. So the government of New Zealand, with the OECS, provided some funding, and we were able to protect that school. We have also worked in the mangrove area. What we recognized was that the mangrove, the waterway was choked, and it was causing a lot of flood water to get into the northern end of the residential area which we call Lagokola. So since we have done the work in the mangrove and opened the waterway, the people at Lagokola are seeing less water when it floods. So these are the small successes that we have had in terms of fighting the floods. I am hoping that as you watch the videos, and you'll be watching more, and you see the impact that it is having on the lives of people in ancillary, that you will volunteer to assist so that we can do much better than we have done in the past. Because we need a lot of support from the villagers in order to be able to combat climate change. And you know, and we all know, that climate change is real. Some people have been blessed. They have moved up to Otago. Some people are away from the water. But everybody could not move. Those who are on the hill, when we are flooded, they can stay at the top and just see that, and see the danger that we are in. So I am appealing to you to volunteer your time so that we can do our best, so that we can help lessen the damages being brought about by climate change. I want to say, finally, while we have not lost any lives in all the problems we have faced, it is getting more severe. So, and you cannot tell what might happen in the future, because it's getting worse. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that, well, it's fair to say that, especially as just I mentioned Carnival earlier, and I think it's fair to say that ancillary has contributed a lot to the whole Carnival culture, the music and so on in particular. And I think, it's, in the calypsos over the years, you've heard a lot coming from ancillary. Now, you may wonder where I'm coming from with this. But just allow me to just quote briefly from a calypso. Not from ancillary, though, but a calypso, a St. Lucian calypso. There's a song, a calypso that goes, once the novelty gone, people quick to move on to the next new bright star, right? And there's the line, it goes, all those people who used to be so popular in my country, where are they now? We forgot them somehow. Now, the reason I'm saying this is that I started working for the government of St. Lucia in the early 80s. I was working in the fisheries department, and I used to come to ancillary. I worked in fisheries from the early 80s until the early 90s. And then around the early 90s, I started to work for a project called the Anchor Project. In fact, we did some work in this very school. And that was like almost 30 years later, I am doing some other work in another life, right, in ancillary. And at least three constants that have been present since that time. I see Mr. Glenison Lawrence, I see Mr. Reeves Lawrence, I see Mr. Griffith. These people were there from the time I started working, and they're still working in your community, right? I think you need to recognize that, okay? So, because there are people who work, they give of their time, they give their strength, they give their treasures, they say. Sometimes we don't thank them, sometimes we criticize them, what they're doing, but sometimes we know we can't do better, and if they're not there, we will not get the progress that we realize when they're there. So I think you have to celebrate that and always give due to the people who have assisted us in whatever way they can. And especially voluntary service, because sometimes now you get a flat, people if you get a flat on the road, they want you to pay them to help you with the flat, all right? So that's what we've come to. So, sorry for digressing a bit, but I thought I had to say this here. Now, also, you also always have to be grateful for the support that you may get from your development partners. And I'm really happy to say that the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, GIZ, a German corporation, have been working with the OECS for many years in many different forms. And most recently, they've been working with us, among other things, on the Human Mobility Project. And without further ado, I will call on Dr. Annette Fleischer, the advisor for the Global Program for the Sustainable Management of Human Mobility in the context of climate change, to deliver a few remarks. She and I have been working together for the last several months, and the working relationship has been really, really wonderful. So, Annette, it's my pleasure to ask you to make a few remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much, Crispin, for this nice introduction. As Crispin mentioned, my name is Annette Fleischer. I'm German national, despite living since nearly 2 years, well, it's already 2 years in August, in St. Lucia, so I'm based here, and I'm working for the German Development Corporation, GIZ. And the GIZ is supported by and commissioned and financed by the German ministry, okay? So the German ministry, with the implementation agency of the GIZ, is supporting or is implementing a project called Human Mobility in the context of climate change. Well, this project, the first phase of this project continues until April next year, but we have already good news from the ministry that the project will be most likely, it's not really in the final stage yet, but most likely be prolonged for another 3 years, so until 2023, which is a very good news. Our partner organization for that program is the OECS Commission, and of course we are supporting as well the OECS member states, which are at the moment 12. I just realized, so not long ago it was 11, but now it's 12 member states. Well, the main goal, the main objective of that program is to, first of all, better understand the linkages between climate change and human mobility. And in the movie you will see in just a couple of minutes, you will learn more about what we understand under human mobility. It's a quite abstract term. Even climate change is a very abstract term, right? So I will not say much about that, but you will learn in the movie, you will see in a minute, a lot about what we mean by that. But in general, it's like people in Anse-Lorraine, and I think all over the OECS region, has experienced a number of both slow onset events, which is the rising sea level, but also rivers which are rising from time to time and causing floods, but also fast onset, rapid onset events like hurricanes, tropical storms, which cause people to move in one way or the other. So for example, I mean, all of you are aware of the year 2017, the latest sad event which happened, which mainly affected Barbuda and Dominica and other islands. And a number of Dominicans had to leave their island, and a number of them arrived in St. Lucia. So this program basically addresses this issue of displacement or migration after a disaster, after an emergency. So in that case, like in 2017, a quite large number of people arrived in St. Lucia from Dominica, which had obviously an effect on a number of different sectors: the infrastructure, the schools, the hospitals, the housing. People had to live here, and they started also to work here. Some people only stayed temporary until their houses could be rebuilt. Others are still in St. Lucia. So the program basically is, the idea is to better, in the future, to learn from these lessons, because a lot of things are happening already very well in the region, and a lot of things are already in place. Thanks to, for example, the revised Treaty of Bastia, which allows all OECS member states to travel from one state to another and to be living in another member state and to work there. However, in a case of a disaster, like a hurricane, post-disaster event, if there are a number of people moving in a short period of time, this has consequences. And to better manage this kind of migration in the future, the program supports the OECS Commission. There have been a number of trainings, workshops, seminars conducted with stakeholders, mainly from different ministries. But in the recent months, in the last couple of months, we also decided to, together with the OECS Commission, to conduct awareness campaigns like the one today. And there's this awareness campaign in Anse-Lorraine in St. Lucia, and there will be two other awareness campaigns, one in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and one in Dominica. So in the next phase of the program, we are also emphasizing more on the community level, more to address and involve people on the ground, and at the same time, obviously, giving advice and assist policymakers to better address those issues. So I'm really thankful that you are here this afternoon. I know it's a Saturday, I know it's very hot, so I'm really grateful that you came, and I'm looking forward really to hear from you what are your concerns, what are your challenges to deal with in a community, and so that we can include that also in the next phase of the program and learn from that. Maybe one last point, I think Mr. Griffith was already mentioning it. One small pilot project we are also doing is to help supporting the works at the riverbed. And so this is something we are also supporting with a quite small financial contribution at the moment, but we are also hoping that this will improve in the next phase. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to have an interactive discussion with you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Annette. As they say in German, Dankeschön. And I just want to acknowledge your colleague, Paul Butcher, also GIZ. And also, well, so thanks for those remarks. And again, thank you for the cooperation and support that we've received through you from GIZ and the government of Germany. We're very grateful for that. Well, many years ago, my aunt, Mrs. Urania Denny, was the principal of the Anse-Lorraine Infant School. And when I used to come here for summer holidays, she always used to talk about a cinema called the Palladium, right, which is somewhere over there, right? As far as I know, it's closed, but this afternoon your movie house is here. Josette, did you bring popcorn? All right, so can you run the movie, please?
People are always on the move, whether we're heading to work or recreation. To arrive at a new destination requires movement of some form. Human mobility refers to changes of residence encompassing migration, displacement, and planned relocations. Though the Caribbean is known for balmy tropical weather, soft white sands, and lush vegetation, sometimes inhabitants of these precious isles, believe it or not, wish to migrate. Yes, that's right. And they migrate for many different reasons, such as job opportunities, better living conditions, and even love and family. Now, while storms have always played a role in human mobility in the region, in most recent years, people have been forced to move due to more intense and frequent extreme weather events, which have been linked to climate change. The German Development Cooperation, GIZ, is implementing the Global Program Sustainable Management of Human Mobility within the context of climate change. The program was commissioned by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. It enhances local and international knowledge on how to deal with climate-induced migration, resettlement, and displacement in small island states. You see, the Caribbean, for all its natural beauty and diverse way of life, is also located in the hurricane belt, potentially threatened by devastating storms during the hurricane season. As climate scientists have projected, hurricanes are becoming more powerful and possibly more frequent as a result of global warming. When such severe natural disasters impact one or more of the islands, people are forced to leave these desolated spaces and migrate to neighboring countries or further afield. In 2017, Hurricane Irma ferociously struck many of the northern Caribbean islands, building up from a tropical storm to a super hurricane within 24 hours. The inhabitants of the island of Barbuda had to be evacuated to nearby Antigua. And when Dominica was all but decimated later that same year by the now infamous Category 5 Hurricane Maria, many inhabitants had to flee the island due to immense damage wreaked on the infrastructure and natural environment.
As an entrepreneur, I lost my business. It was quite traumatic in that regard because I had just finished refurbishing, fixing up and construction and everything else and buying equipment and stuff for my business using my savings. So that was really, really hard. We really have to monitor the children, and the children themselves going through a hard time. Seeing that you just had to pick up and leave. There was no preparation in terms of saying goodbye. So there was no closure. Just decided today we're going to go. In a matter of hours, we had to pack a suitcase and leave. So we went to St. Lucia first because we lived there, so we had a network already, as well as the islands were opening their doors to receiving people putting up other families that they did not even know.
While these catastrophic events, known as rapid onset events of climate change, displace many almost instantly, the more subtle effects of climate change, known as slow onset events, provide their fair share of incentives for some to move. Slow onset events could be changes of seasonal patterns which may interrupt crop production and thus adversely affect livelihoods, or sea level rise which affects populations in the form of flooding in low-lying regions near the sea.
The Ansari village is located between two rivers. There's the Ansari Grand Riviere and the Ansari Petit Riviere. From 1994, from Tropical Storm Debbie, we have been having flooding on a regular basis, very frequently. The water used to erode the beachfronts to the point where the school was being threatened. We built the Gibeon basket, which has helped a lot in stopping the erosion on the beach. We are also experiencing a lot of flooding there because the waterway was blocked by fallen trees and debris. We are able to straighten the waterway and create an avenue for water to flow freely and in a straight path. This has reduced the flooding in the housing area.
The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Commission, OECS, encompassing many of the English-speaking Caribbean island states and overseas territories and departments, has made some decisive efforts in addressing the free movement of people within the Eastern Caribbean region. As such, the OECS has created policies that are beneficial and applicable to climate-induced mobility. The revised Treaty of Basel 2011 is one such initiative. This treaty allows OECS residents to freely travel from one OECS island to the next to find employment, access social services, and even to settle.
The revised Treaty of Basel, it speaks to a single space which allows for the free movement of people, goods, and services. And you'll have seen over the years that people in the Eastern Caribbean have been able to move more and more freely between countries. The travel documentation, for example, has been reduced significantly. You can stay in a member state as long as you want to, so to speak. And the requirements for work that you might find, having to move to a non-OECS territory in the Caribbean, that's not the same, in the Eastern Caribbean. It's much simpler, right? So I think it is fair to say that the OECS as a single space and, through the revised Treaty of Basel allows for greater and more rapid mobility between countries in the event of a climate-induced disaster.
These recent events have tested the resilience of the Caribbean people, but have also shown that OECS member states are generally on the right track with developing policies and processes allowing the movement of people within the region. As the impacts of climate change are likely to increase in the future, there is a need to continuously strengthen existing systems to cope with such hazardous events resulting in migration. Climate-induced movements of the Caribbean population are expected to increase and become the norm according to scientific findings. It is therefore imperative that, especially in small island developing states such as the Caribbean, more is done to develop further effective legislation and policies to handle climate-induced human mobility, both for the short term and long term. Strong collaboration within the region and committed partnerships with international partners, such as with the GIZ, will help the Caribbean region manage these challenges.
Essentially, what we have done is that we have trimmed the mangrove where it was also causing an obstruction to the water flow. So, and then we have also straightened the course of the river. So when there is heavy rain and the water is flowing down, then it gets a freer course to go into the sea, to flow into the sea. So, and some of the people, maybe when you speak to some of them, they will tell you, yes, they have experienced some relief. But it is not 100%, but that has assisted them tremendously. The intention is to have a boardwalk built in there, also have a pool where we have fish, the tilapia, so people can actually, whether it's residents, other people can come in, see what it's like, and enjoy the nature, the cool breeze. We have water birds in the river, which we call the pool low, and it's really an attraction. It's lovely to see. So it has potential for development, touristic development, as well as something which the people can have some pride in and to actually invite people to come in. And I am very proud of it myself.
Every time the tide is high, we get affected. Every time the rain falls heavily, we find ourselves we are being affected. And it has been happening for a little while, and I think something needs to be done about it. So every time we hear the storm is approaching, we get nervous. We have to leave it, find ourselves in a shelter.
I don't know how they're gonna organize things to locate whoever they have to locate in Tibuk, because I realized what happened in the flood. It's like those people are living in Tibuk area. They are the one that getting the most affected. Because the Christmas tree, if you see that past there, I was inside my house and I couldn't leave. And it's a good thing. My cousin lived at the back of me. I had to go to his house because he got upstairs and downstairs. So I went upstairs for the night. They put my name down the last time before Christmas. I lost my fridge, I lost everything I had in my house. And they put my name to give me bed sheet, they give my name to give me beds and everything. I don't get nothing. I had to work hard to recruit, do another everything back again. You understand? So, and it's not me alone. So I don't know how that incident happened, because I realize every government that's taking power, who in charge, they are the one in charge of everything.
When you see the river rise up, the water does be all under the step and all under their house, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for days, until they open the river, the mouth of the river, the water will not go down. Sometimes I myself that have to go and open the river so I will not walk into it. Garbage, trash, I have to be sweeping them every morning. I have to wake up and sweep, pick up garbage, people garbage, and bag it to throw it for the trash when it passes in.
Well, recently they did a little work at the back there to clear off the mangrove, so the water gets a little passageway easily. So it's not as bad as before, yeah. From the time we decided to renovate, we knew we had to put it a little higher than before, because since we know we're living in that area, it's just behind the river there. So we always get affected. So that was the plan.
The thing is that my house is not very high, it's very low. So any water, it will come to my home. Well, what I could do is to fix it up, put it a little higher so that when the rain falls, I cannot get affected by the water.
My name is Tracy John from Ansari. Every year, we always have problems. The water coming right to the house. And sometimes people have to come and pick you up and bring you to the shelter. When the water from in the mountain coming down, is we feeling it. We have to run different places, leave out the area, the house alone stay there, and people have to run away. Only one thing I see they do, the mangroves they're trying to cut. And I believe last year we don't find so much water coming down. I mean, the water was coming down straight down to the sea. The lagoon mouth is blocked. There is no way we live in Ansari, we can escape from it.
Okay, I am Mary Samuel. I presently live at Otabo Heights, but I lived previously Bridge Street and Slurry, which is next to Pittibrook Street. I lived there for close to 20 years before I left for this new location. And my living was primarily because of the flooding, which impacted me quite a lot. I can recall vividly those experiences, you know. But in the aftermath was even worse. When the waters receded and I had to get back to my home to see the home that I lived in. It is through this window the children had to be taken out because we could not open doors. So the neighbors came in, friends, and then they took them one by one and swam out with them. The children were on their backs and swam out to the boat, and then we were taken to the Paris Center, I think it was. It was heartbreaking. I broke down. I was wondering whether I could begin all over again. because it was just mud, debris all over, inside and out. The mud was about maybe 6 inch inside the house. Appliances, furniture, every corner was just mud.
The experience left her scarred permanently, and when the opportunity presented itself, Mrs. Samuel opted for relocation. Government had acquired land and offered it to residents affected by the flood.
And to this new location, which government opened up for persons who were affected by flood waters, and then it was given at a reasonable price. So many persons took advantage of it. But some persons could not afford this sugar apple. So to help this community, I believe that they should continue. There should be more, the drainage, they should step up on the drainage, and for me also, apart from the drainage, some persons still need to be relocated. I think we need low-cost housing in this area to meet the needs of those who cannot come up to Otago Heights. Make some other low-cost housing available to reach them so that they too can come out from the area.
Another interesting video, that's another experience, somebody who moved. So I think we've seen, and looking at your own living experience, your own and your testimonies, we've seen how these weather events, floods and storms have affected your community. Now I have the panel who needs no further introduction. The members. Annette Fleischer has already spoken, Mr. Griffith has already spoken. So, but I want to just throw a question to Mr. Griffith first of all. Mr. Griffith, as you can see from the video, some people, the Ansari has been impacted many times over the last several decades. With storms and flooding and so on, and people's houses have been destroyed, their livelihoods have been destroyed and so on. Some people have left, some people have remained. What do you think as they say in 10 easy words, what are the things that make people decide whether to stay or to go? Why don't they go? Why don't they go?
The people who stay, most of them do not have the capacity to move. Because to move to a new location, you need to put up a new structure. You need land. And the people do not have the financial means to afford these things. Now, the other problem is, even if your government makes it low cost, but low cost is not let's say, it's not absolute. Because what might be low cost to me might not be low cost to someone who's unemployed or who doesn't have the means to even pay less than like $200 a month. So this is one, finance, affordability are reason why people stay in the village. But it hurts because almost every year, some people have to find the means to get new furniture, get new appliances. I don't know how they manage it, but somehow they survive.
Thank you. I want to explore this a bit further, and so I'm going to pass the mic on to, and maybe stretch the question a little bit. Annette, I know you've worked in many parts of the world, and I guess you've worked in, well, certainly in the Caribbean now, you've worked in some parts of Africa and elsewhere. I know Mr. Lawrence has given one example of why people will they may not be able to move. But sometimes even when people can move, they don't move. Do you want to just share some thoughts on that?
Thank you, Crispin, for this very interesting question. And I was just thinking when Mr. Griffith was answering the first question, I was thinking definitely financial means are a reason not to move, but there's more than that. And there's a word called home. In German, we call it Heimat. And that's something very important and very emotional to people. So in one of the movies, there was a lady saying she lived for 20 years in a house close to the coast and close to the river. And I guess that's also one of the main reasons why people are staying, why people are not moving, despite the fact that they are knowing they are living in a very vulnerable environment. They are emotionally attached to their houses, to their homes. I mean, they have their friends there, they have their family there. They grew up there. They know every single centimeter of that place. So it's always difficult to change places, and it's always difficult to move in the first place. So my experience, as Crispin was saying, I worked in a number of African countries on migration issues. And migration is basically, in a lot of cases, it's not the first option. It's not like people are suffering from economic situations, there from unemployment, there might be even conflicts, might be even wars. But people are resistant to move. Migration is often the last resort. Migration is something which is connected to the capacities to move, but it's also very emotional. And those people who are moving, a lot of cases, in fact, that's one of my thesis, one of my hypotheses, my doctoral thesis, saying that they want to come back. Even though they are moving, they always want to go back to where they have come from. So home, I think, is something, it's emotional, it's something very important to consider, and that might be also a reason why people are resistant to move and to relocate. But that question I would also like to give back to the audience, because we had a number of discussions with Mr. Lawrence and Mr. Griffith before that event today. And there have been, as Mr. Griffith was saying, in the last couple of years, always there have been floods in Anse-la-Reille. And people are affected. There are a number of people who are severely affected every year or every second year by floods. So why are you not moving? Why are you resisting? So I would like to give the question actually back to the audience, if I might, later on.
Yeah, sure. And when I said Mr. Lawrence, I meant Mr. Griffith a while ago. But to me, they one and the same for me. When I see one, I see the other. Right? So forgive me for that. So I really wanted you to answer that question. I asked that question deliberately because sometimes the reason that people make decisions about where they live and where they go and where they stay sometimes is a lot more than just what people see on the surface. So sometimes government might say, but I give you a land and whatever, and you're not moving. Why? The other thing too is that from my experience, I know people with livelihoods. In other words, if you are sometimes, in some parts of the world, say governments might try to relocate fishermen 30 miles from the sea, right? You can't be a fisherman and live 30 miles from the sea when you have to get up early morning to, to go to the sea and so on, that, and so on, and sell your, or pull your seine net or whatever. If that's your livelihood, if you're fishing on a lake, have your 100 miles on the lake, you can't be a fisherman and practically continue your livelihood if that's what you've always done and if that's what you know. So it means therefore that when we make decisions or when we're making policy decisions as to how we relocate people, and if we relocate people, that we have to factor all of these considerations, to make sure that when we do it, we do the right thing, and if we're doing the right thing, we do it properly. So before we throw it out to the audience for a conversation, I guess I just want to maybe just go back to Mr. Griffith a little bit and ask him. One of the things I heard a while ago is that in many instances, in all of the videos, people said that they've been promised assistance, right? Whether it's beds and so on, and or other things to help to rebuild their lives, some sort of support, and they have not received it. Okay, now, is it that? Why has that happened? Is that the governments have forgotten, or is it that the community organizations like the Ansari disaster committee and so on have not followed up with the government or something. So why have these things happened? You know, when assistance is promised, it has not been forthcoming. And what do you think can be done to make these things happen?
Okay, it's a difficult question, but let me attempt to respond to that. In a lot of, when we have the disaster and in the aftermath, what you get different agencies coming to assist. And when they come in, they go to the affected people and find out from them what it is that they at the time, what the needs are. So you might have an agency like the Red Cross. The Red Cross might come in, find out what appliances got damaged, what it is that the people need, and they would promise to assist. But don't forget, Ansari might, in most cases when St. Lucia is impacted, Ansari is not the only community. So they may have to help other places. So a few people from Ansari will get assistance, but you cannot help everybody. But the challenge is that once you have promised people assistance, they always look forward to getting it. So herein lies the problem. So you promise, but you cannot help everybody. And that will always remain a challenge.
Thanks. And I have one more question for Annette, I guess. Annette, based on what you've seen from the videos and your time on St. Lucia and having, well, thank goodness you haven't experienced you have not actually experienced one of these events to see what it's like. I mean, you hear people being rescued in fishing boats in Ansari and so on because the water is so high. But from your experiences elsewhere, are there any lessons that you've seen from elsewhere that that could have some benefit for a community like Ansari that is being affected in this way?
Well, I think it goes back to what Mr. Griffith just said. I mean, for a community like Ansari, who has always experienced disasters and events like flooding over the years, I think one of the most crucial aspects is to be proactively addressing the topic and to be prepared, to be prepared for the next event, because we can be all sure the next event is coming, the next disaster, the next hurricane, the next tropical storm, the next flood is coming. So just to have a system, mechanisms in place, procedures in place to be better prepared, to have a better planning in front. And that's what Mr. Griffith said. I mean, one thing is that a lot of agencies come afterwards, which is good to support and give assistance. But maybe it's even more important to have a better planning and to have also better policies maybe in place. So the program GIZ is supporting the human mobility in the context of climate change is not only working in the Caribbean, but it's also working in the Pacific and in the Philippines. So what they did, for example, in the Pacific is they developed national relocation guidelines for Fiji, for one of the islands in the Pacific. And they are working on a regional relocation guideline, so cross-border relocation guidelines. So that might be something where the Caribbean could also learn from these experiences. And yeah, that's something which is a very sensitive topic, as we all know, to relocate somebody. But in some cases, I think it might be necessary, and it might be better to do it in advance than have the consequences afterwards. So I think better planning, to be better prepared, might be one of the ways to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Mr. Griffith. So right now it's open mic time. So first of all, do you have any questions for anybody on the panel, or you have any questions about anything you saw on the videos this afternoon? The floor is open. Don't be shy.
Well, not only questions, I would also like to hear comments or suggestions on what way the program could the direction of the program could go. So what your experiences are, what your challenges you face are. So in case you don't have questions, comments are also welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My palon shayobo. First of all, let me apologize for my lateness. In fact, I was almost not able to make it here this afternoon because I had to go meet my brother who's traveling back from the States here, but he didn't make the flight, so I have to go to get him tomorrow. Having listened to the panelists, I share a lot of the sentiments that they have expressed. But I'll tell you something. I've lived in this community for years. I have never really been directly impacted by flood. Okay, fortunately, my home location in the village, we never really had any serious flooding. But I feel the pain of my fellow Anslarians. Now, you see this school right here? Twice we got flooding here, and the water got to about 4 feet high. Well, you Anslarians know what I'm talking about. Okay? And that had a serious impact on parents and children and so on. But let me go on further. You see this problem of flooding, we'll always have flooding in Ansari. We're trying to mitigate the flooding by the projects we have implemented, and they have helped significantly. But we are looking at the symptoms of the flooding, but we have to look at the real cause. Okay? And for us to be able to rectify that situation, like Annette said, in some other places, there is relocation. Let me ask you, you Anslarians, who have not moved yet, for all the reasons that were given, but if you were given an alternative, you're told, we are going to make land available to you, we are going to give you some form of assistance through low-cost housing. You may not own the home, but you can pay a rental. Wouldn't you all be prepared to go that way? Answer me, especially those of you who have been affected. So it lies in the hands of the powers that be. Okay? I'm not being political. I've never really been. It's about the governments of the day. Make the land available. There is land around. Make it available to the people. With those who can afford to purchase land, you purchase. Those who cannot afford, give them apartments. Okay? And that, I think, will go a long way in helping solve this problem. Because every year, we don't know what's going to happen this year. Dominica had the problem. Okay? Even if some of our workers went to Dominica to assist in the rebuilding process, maybe that's a blessing in disguise for some people. But what about us? Every year, we are faced with the possibility of serious flooding. So as far as I'm concerned, the real solution to the problem, those people who are in the flood-prone areas like Otabo and, not Otabo, sorry, Pitibuk and Lagokola, particularly, and those who live along the river bank, let us do something about it. Government has to try to do that. That is my opinion. Okay? Thank you.
Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon again.
Living in Ansari for all my life, I believe our problem is holistic. It's not any one given problem. And I believe just by what you're saying, low-cost housing will help a bit. But I believe also educating the villagers is part and parcel of our work and of our way forward. Because as you all said rightly, one, you know, the livelihood of a lot of the villagers are in the village. You understand me? And moving will always be a problem. But in my thinking, one way we could remedy our problem is by the government coming in, one, some of the lands or where the flooding is taking place, if government could acquire that land and build something and move the villagers for them not to have a reason to come back, I believe that will help. Because anytime you move them and a relative of them wants the place, they could get the place to live back and inhabit it, they will do so. So if government come, take the place, build something which would benefit the village, that the villagers cannot come back to that place, all right, and that will help. Also, when we as a people, right, year after year, we face the same problem. And sometimes I believe some of our policymakers, they have not, understand the village or the problem that we are facing, and policies have been put in place for us. I believe that is not too good. So I believe I want to thank all those who have given us the opportunity to hear us and to understand from us what we are facing. I believe that's a good way forward, and I would applaud each and every one of them. But as I said, the low house costing project, it's a very good idea. I believe we should piggyback on that and help some of our villages.
Good afternoon. I'm a bit dirty, but I just want to express myself a little bit. One of the things I do appreciate your presence in this place. And the other thing is, ancillary, I am a victim of the situation too. I live just by the riverside, and Mr. Lawrence's idea is one of the most brilliant ideas, because this is what it was all about, to evacuate most of these people from this area. Since you have it covered, I'll give you phase one. Phase one of the things is that river, no one can control it. And the other one is, if we put ourselves together and help, we might stand a chance of saving a lot of damage to this place, like you already start doing, but we need a little bit more immediate help. So I do appreciate this. Thank you. Good night.
Yes, good afternoon. Let me just add my voice to the discussion, please. Going back to the discussion at the head table, by the way, my name is Mr. Gregory Lawrence. I'm a resident and a teacher at the Answer Primary School, this very school. Going back to the discussion at the head table, which spoke about reasons why people move or not move, I found the discussion quite interesting. So I concur that people will make decisions based on the economic situation, based on their attachment to home and so on. And of course, those decisions can cause them to decide whether they stay or not. But we have to put that in the context of what's happening right now. For an old man who has lived all his life, who's a fisherman, who's attached to the village, because by virtue of the fact that he's a fisherman, he's lived there all his life, and of course, given the situation, he may have no choice because he loves that place, he has his memories and so on. But let's consider, okay, a young person growing up right now who has gone to school, gone to secondary school, maybe is working, has potential, he lives with his mom and dad. Given the history of the community, yes, he's lived there, I'm sure he wants to move to greener pastures, a better life, a better situation than what my parents inherited. And I'm sure if young people who have started to work, have an education, get a little something, are given the opportunity to make a move early in their lives, given the history of the place, given what we have understood now, and given the appreciation of global change and disasters and so on, they will seize on that opportunity if by the government, for the policymakers and so on, offer a package where there is some costs, there is some program that causes them to at least, I can see myself in the next 5 years. Look, for example, Mary Samuel, for example, she said she had no choice. She was raising a family. For all practical purposes, she made the decision to buy land and raise a family. She got to a point where she had no choice but to move. And it's a wise decision to make. But look at what has happened. She has built a home. She has made an investment in that house there. She's not just going to leave it and get rot, for it to get rotten. Potentially, someone chooses to live in it now. So she will lease it out. She will not allow it to. But what has happened, it means that space is now being taken. So granted, you will have that kind of thing happening because in some cases, it's not a case, several cases that happen. People will move on. So I'm saying, given all the work you have discussed there, I think the young people, given the fact that we are prone to flooding, given the fact that what the changes we are taking place in terms of climate disaster getting worse, if given the opportunity, I think they will grasp it. I especially give them a financial way by which there's a program with the finance institutions, the credit unions, the banks, by which they can pay their way and see themselves next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, owning a home on a piece of land where they are safe. Now I mentioned safe because while we're talking about flooding in the ancillary area, that's what has happened. People have moved to St. Lawrence and on the hills. That creates another dynamic in terms of the situation. Potentially landslides, where perhaps you get land slippage and stones above. Some people, if you have, for argument, you can visit it, have actually built in the riverbed. The riverbed at St. Lawrence, if you look at it, they have actually built on the riverbed. These people are building, there's no choice. They have no choice. They don't have the finances by which to go on to buy land somewhere. They have to move. They have children. They have to leave their mother's homes. They have to raise families. They have to move and find somewhere to stay. And unless there is a program, government had a short-term program from all indications seem to have come to an end. But for sustainability, we need to have these programs, more long-term programs. For young people getting a job today, you can see myself in the next 20 years of I can get a piece of land and start raising a family. Because even people at St. Lawrence, at some time, we have to move. Because there are the hazards associated with living with. For example, both of you know Ansley, where before they built the bridge there, where McCox, all that is land. I would blame it to some extent on poor government policy. I mean, but I don't want to go there because that has its own issues. But for example, let's just raise the issue. I want to look at the bigger picture. The Ancillary Health Center, the old health center, right, was built there and it's now demolished and the government is now renting a property at Tabo. And for all indications, whether it's the Labour Party or the UWP, they plan to build a health center in the very same place. Now look at what's happening. For a village that is prone to flooding, you're going to spend you're going to put a structure, no matter how high you go, at the base, potentially, this structure will flood. And you're telling me you're going to demolish and build? All significant structures in Ancillary right now should be built on a hill, not on the floodplain. I'm saying, so even government to some extent is guilty of making these bad decisions. This school was built when we had not known the Debbie situation. But the experience has taught, it's a school for dry sunny weather, but not for floods. Because I've taught it in every case, and not to make it worse, but let's look at the other impact. There are teachers, when Debbie came, their home lives, their life at home were affected, and their workplace was affected. So there was the double effect, I can tell you, Mr. Samuel. So even the students in the community, besides the fact that their homes are getting affected, when they come to school, in some cases the school had to be on off for a while, a few weeks, and they lost out because the teachers, everyone's affected, the building was affected, and so there is a bigger picture, a bigger way in which the community is affected. And so, for example, look at schooling in Ancillary. The infant school is likely affected. You helped in that program, but the primary school cannot be relocated as it is right now, right? So that's an issue. Well, at least you might say school can take a second priority because maybe students can get other schools to get, and the Ministry of Education probably can get a program. But when your very life, where you live, is affected and you can't change, that certainly impacts your life. I mean, I would want to rest my case for now until some other time, but I just thought I meant to make these points. Thank you.
Just to continue what I just said earlier on, as we saw in the video, one of our major problems in the village is the mouth of the river to the sea is always closed. And I believe, and the flood coming and meeting the mouth closed, and the water backs up and floods the village. If somebody could engineer some way or somehow for that mouth of the river always to be open, you understand me? And some way that the water could flow freely, regardless of whatever day it is, I believe that will help the village a lot. Understand me? Because the video shows it that it is closed all the time, and when the disaster comes, sometimes people have to run and get it open. If there is some way somehow that it could be ready for anytime at such a time as a flood, I believe the village will be in a good place.
And good afternoon, Ms. Daisy, member of Red Cross, member of Disaster Committee. As Mr. Dovey said about Deadly Society, I think today we need to recognize some persons in the community when a disaster happens, they're always there. First of all, those who block the river mouth, especially in the middle of the water, they're there. So we just say hurrah to these people. For those who know them, we know them. To Red Cross, our branch here, hurrah to you all also. I'm here to say that Red Cross, before disaster, from the 1st of June, we would go around and tell every household, be prepared. We would tell them, make sure they're prepared, make sure they're organized. We do family education, we'll tell them. But for some reason, when the disaster happened, everybody doesn't know what to do. And everybody waits for last minute to get to the shelter and cause the confusion for the same thing we warn them about. So sometimes education is one, but how much do we retain? The children at school, they tell them, they go home, their parents say, that's a bit way. Again, we hear again on the same topic. Every year, every day. People, we must be ready. Every day, I go to a Red Cross meeting, we planning. When we come to your home after disaster, we need to get information not only for ourselves, but also for government and for also persons who want to help. Example, the persons here today. Because they will not come and help you if they don't have how many homes affected, what is happening, what happened before, what happened after, how many days they stayed in the shelter. They need all this information in order to come up with brilliant ideas like today. So thank you very much. Hoping we will work together both with the community disaster and the Red Cross, because we need to work together hand in hand in order to achieve the goals you're here for. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think I saw the mic one more.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Ricardo. Yeah, he mentioned about the cleaning of the mouths of the rivers. There are two major construction companies who mine in the back there. I suggest that we do get them involved in regards to using their equipment. One, Mr. Redo Kajada, I used to work for him. He's always interested in knowing projects, longevity projects, in assisting in desilting the river or clearing the river mouths, as well as C.O. Williams. So there are two major construction companies who actually mine on the same rivers. So letters could be written, some actions could be done to get them involved in the event that there is a disaster and they need to clean up the river mouths and so forth, and even prior to that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I see no more requests to the floor at this time. So I just want to indicate to those of you who received a slip of paper with a number on it, hold on to it. It was given to you for a purpose, okay? And we will follow up. So hold on to that piece of paper. Right now we have a final video.
I am Cyprian Altieno, better known as Spring. I had the Spring Bakery by the bridge, by the Connery's Bridge.
This used to be a popular spot in Canaries, so popular that Spring's bread was being sold in supermarkets and exported to Martinique. Until December 24, 2013, when what became known as the Christmas Eve Trough overflowed the riverbanks and destroyed everything on the ground floor in the famed Springs Bakery.
I never thought the water would come so high up to the ceiling. So all the staff and I had to leave the place, run for our life that day. The trough put me out of business because my whole bakery got damaged by the trough. So up to now I am still there, struggling, trying to see if I can start back. Well, that's one of the ovens, a rotating oven where you can just push a whole rack of bread in.
Some of the equipment was salvaged, but is left out in the open.
Up to now I am just struggling, waiting to see if I can get a place to start my business. That's the reason why it is in that state now. This piece of equipment at that time will cost about $50,000.
Others still to be repaired after the storm. And more equipment is housed here, a temporary location granted by a friend.
That's another thing.
It will cost thousands of dollars to get the equipment serviced and running again.
The price the fella asked to repair the mixer, $11,000. I left the mixer for him. Well, I lose mostly everything. Only some of the damaged ovens and some of the mixers I got, but mostly everything.
The tale of recovery is heartbreaking.
It is very hard because I have been trying my best. Different agencies have promised me help. The government have come and go, and things the same way. So that's the spot I bought from a relative of mine. With the money I told you I had to deposit on the loan. So I bought this. And I tried to build that, but I don't have any more money to start the bakery back.
The dream of the return of Springs Bakery is still alive. This piece of land was purchased for the new location for Springs Bakery. The Member of Parliament, Dominique Fede, provided some assistance in building the foundation. But doors of opportunities remain shut.
I have tried my best, as you saw, with the little money I had. But right now, I am at a standstill.
That video puts it's a sad indication, but it's in a way it gives us a lot of food for thought, and makes you realize that the whole issue of climate change and its impact on people is something that's serious, that needs serious consideration, and the ways in which we address it have to be given serious consideration, carefully thought out, right? Because we have to understand the impacts, and we have to understand how we try to plan for and address all those effects on people's lives. Okay, before we move on, I'd like to allow Mr. Griffith to say something. Right.
Testing, yeah.
It's on.
Okay. There are two things I want to mention to the gathering. Since we are in the hurricane season, and it's also based on some of the comments that have been made. Somebody remarked that a lot of people have moved to the St. Lawrence area. I want to point out to you, during the course of last year, we are touring the area, and we are looking at threats. I want to caution people that the St. Lawrence area is a very dangerous area. The reason being, since the relocation project took place, you get a lot more water coming down the hill. And the potential for stones and rocks to roll down is there. I say the potential is there, but it seems I've forgotten that. Not too long ago, maybe it might be long ago, a stone rolled down the hill and killed someone. About 2 years ago, on the highway, a stone went into a house. Miss Juni's house, that's my brother's house. Remember that? A stone rolled down there and went into his house. So the potential for stones to roll down that hill is there. We also, during the course of the tour, realized that there is a huge boulder by Mr. Primus's house. If those people who live at St. Lawrence were to go up there and have a look at this stone and how it is perched on the top of the hill, they will get out. Now, what we are trying to find some way of breaking down that stone, but this has not happened. So I tell you, that is a very dangerous area. Other than that, I think there was a slide where Mr. Luis Leosi, a mudslide went into his house, so he had to vacate the house. I don't remember whether it was last year or year before. Year before. So we have a lot of potential dangers in the St. Lawrence area. Okay, and the other thing, you have heard a lot of talk about the OECS and mobility within the OECS. I want to advise you to make sure you have all your documents ready. Always make sure that they are safe, because you do not know when the water will get higher than before, and you might lose a lot of your documents. Things like your passport, make sure you have these well secure. For you to move in the OECS, you need your ID card. So if you don't have an ID card now is the time for you to get the ID card. You never know what could happen. If you get a Dominica case, and you may have to move to St. Vincent, at least you can move with your ID card. So the ID card is not only for you to vote. So make sure you have these things secure. If you don't have an ID card, make sure you have some form of identification in case you have to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. One last formal item on the agenda. I'd like to call on Mr. Reeves Lawrence to deliver a vote of thanks. Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr. Duverne. Sometime on Friday, I came in the auditorium and I looked around. I said, wow, a lot of work has to be done to prepare the place for the symposium. And obviously, when I walked in here this afternoon, I was most pleasantly surprised. I see the roof looking a lot better. I see the general ambience. I said, what is a graduation taking place here? All right. So I want, first of all, to thank, I think his name is Swan, who was the one who did the decoration. If Swan is around, or if let Swan know that we are really thankful for the decoration. We also have Mr. Jonah, who's the caretaker for the school. I think he helped tremendously also in making sure that we have this wonderful ambience. We have Mr. Ndengo and Dyson. They too did a lot to make this place as it is. All right, so there's the first set of people I want to thank. Then, of course, they say that there is a picture paints 1,000 words. Well, we didn't just have pictures, we have video. So it's not 1,000 words, it's 10,000 words. When we saw the level of the video quality that we have had. And I think I can thank Bill Motley and his crew. You are involved in the putting up the video. Oh, And there's Albi's Calabash TV. You're talking about Mr. Fanis. Well, I worked very closely with Mr. Fanis from sometime in the week. I was the one going around with him. I was telling him where he can locate some of the residents, like Mrs. Samuel and the rest of the people who were on the video. So I must say, I must thank him most dearly for the kind of work that he put in. He was very hardworking, and I was there to support him. So let us say thanks to Albi's Media, Calabash TV as well. All right. Now, other than this symposium would not have been as successful as I think it has been so far if we did not speak to some other people. Where's what I brought with me? Okay, yeah, all right. Let us first of all thank those who organized the symposium, all right? I'm sorry I was a little late, so I wasn't there to hear what was said in the opening remarks. But I will try my best. If there's anything I've left out, I'm sure that will be mentioned later. Okay, we have the welcome that was given by Mrs. Josette Edward Chalmine, the Program Officer, Environmental Sustainability, OECS Commission. Let's put our hands together for... That lady is very hardworking, you know. That lady is like an Ansarian, you know? Yeah. So thank you very much, Josette. Okay, then we have the members of the head table, and they give a very inspiring and very interesting and informative account. I speak of no other than Mr. Crispin Dovey, who is the program coordinator. Let's put our hands for Mr. Dovey. Okay, then there is, I hope I can pronounce the surname, Dr. Annette Fleischer. I know a little German, yeah? I know a little German, but not much. So thank you again. She is the advisor for Global Program Sustainable Management of Human Mobility in the context of climate change and NDC Assistant Deutsch, whatever. I cannot say the rest. So you see, it was more than a mouthful. So let's put our hands together for Dr. Annette Fleischer. And of course, we have our very own, the son of the soil, Mr. Griffith, Stephen Griffith, who was a member of the Disaster Preparedness Committee, member of the Ansari Constituency Council, etc., right, sir? So put out your hands again for Mr. Griffith. Okay. I suppose there must have been, other members of the media who were there present. Thank you. Do we have refreshments, of course? Yes. So those people who prepared the refreshments, although I may not be here to sample it because I'll have to be moving. I'll be moving to another sphere of activities later. Well, you don't know about that one. Who? Oh, sorry. Elder Bascom. I was told that you had the opening prayers for the occasion. So let's put our hands together for... Now, I must not forget, very lately, we had to have a change of venue. Initially, the venue was supposed to have been the parish hall. But you know, later on, I'm sure you know about the dental clinic that will be on Monday. So no matter what we did, it was not possible to have it here. So we had to come to the principal of the school, Mr. Izimbat, and I came to him and I asked him, he said, Mr. Lawrence, no problem, you know? And so we have to thank Mr. Izimbat, the principal, for making the school available to us. So let's put our hands together for the principal. Of course, if you, the audience, did not come, then we wouldn't have a symposium, right? So we want to put your hands together for yourselves, for being here, all right? And I must say, all the people who made their contributions on the floor,
I must say you made some very interesting, contribution. I hope the Dr. Annette and Mr. Dauphin and the powers that be, what I speak to, the powers that be. Of course, the OECS has always been there with us. I hope the message will resonate with them and that we will be in a position where we will feel a lot more comfortable when we are in the hurricane season, whether it's this year or next year, the years to come. But as Annette said, we can either be reactive or we can be proactive. Now, right now, I think we're in the reactive mode because if anything were to happen during the hurricane season, we have to react to whatever damage that may be caused. But we have to be proactive and be long-term in that regard. That is why I was making the point that we have to look at the relocation aspect, okay? And even those people who live in the flood-prone village, we will have, if there's building to be done, you have to build on up, because when that water is powerful, and we have had the experience. I am fortunate I have not had the experience that some of you have had, but it's very heart-rending to, when you see the video and what's happening there. Look at the gentleman from Canris, he lost everything. He had the big investment, he lost everything. And those of us here, remember the Christmas trough? Who said no? It's not too far away. It was just 2013, yeah? So these are the things. And we have to come together as a community. Sometimes I find we are too divisive in the manner we do things. Let us all come together because ancillary belongs to us, every one of us, okay? So when we have the Red Cross coming to you, ask you for information, don't be reluctant, okay? The Disaster Preparedness Committee, we have to formalize it, right? Because let's not wait when the thing is upon us for us to start crying. We have to prepare. There is a saying, we cannot predict the future, but we can prepare for it. You get me? We cannot predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen in the next month or two during the hurricane season, but at least we can make some preparation for it, okay? And that is why I think we're having this symposium. So thanks again. If there is anybody I left out inadvertently, sorry, but I want to thank everybody who made this symposium possible. Thank you very much.